Hi guys, welcome to Guitar Painting 101. This video is the part 2 of the episode 1. In this video, I will continue to talk about airline setup, but I'll show you that in real world. So let's go to the booth. Okay guys, we are in booth now. You can see here's my compressor and there's a hose. It's a clear hose. You can see there's some water drops in there. As I mentioned in last video, this is the benefit of clear hose. Then from compressor, I connected to this hose to my air dryer. You can see I wrapped my hose here. It's about a 50 feet hose. And here's my air dryer. Actually, I don't use it very frequently. There's the outlet of the air dryer. Then after air dryer, I connected to my filters and regulators. Yes, you can see here is my full stage filters from 16 microns and then 5 microns, 0.3 microns and 0.01 microns, and there's a regulator. After it, I use a better hole to my spray guns. And there's one thing I forgot to say. You better place your air compressor as far as possible from where you spray. Even though you use exhaust fan, there's still some overspray here. So if your air compressor draws some overspray in, it will shorten the longevity. That's why you need to place your air compressor in somewhere clean. After you connect everything, you can run the compressor and check if there's somewhere not sealed valve. And now let's set the regulator in your airline. But before that, you need to check two things. The first thing is master pressure. This means your air compressor stops running. And you can see here, my air compressor keeps running and it will stop at 0.8 MPa. That's my master pressure. And then we need to try the cutting pressure or kissing pressure. You can use the blow gun or something else, just release the air. Then you can see my air pressure is dropping here. With some time air releasing, and you can find the compressor restarts to run. Okay, here you can see my compressor restarts to run. And bear in mind, what's the pressure here? That is your cutting pressure. And now we can set the regulator here. You need to set the pressure of your regulator less than the cut-in pressure. If your pressure of regulator is higher than cut-in pressure, you will get a pressure fluctuation of your spray guns. And that's why we need an additional regulator in our airline instead of just using the spray gun regulator. Normally we set it as lower as possible, but you still need to make sure you have enough pressure to carry your spray gun. And here is an example. My spray gun is about 29 psi or 0.2 MPa. I set my regulator to 0.5 MPa, then it's just enough for my spray gun. Then if I lower the pressure a little bit of my regulator, and you can see my spray gun is only about 26 psi. And that's not enough for my spray gun. So you need to adjust the pressure to pair your spray gun. Let's make something here. If my spray gun needs about 35 or 36 psi to work properly, and you can see here I increase my pressure to nearly about 0.6 MPa. That equals to my cutting pressure, but I can't raise the pressure that my spray gun requirement. So what can we do now? The answer is you can adjust your air compressor. We can adjust the max pressure and cutting pressure from your switch of your air compressor. You can see there are two small tuners here. The yellow one is for cutting pressure, and the plastic one is for max. Here I'm releasing the air, and you can see my original setting of cutting pressure. It's about less than 0.6. It's about 0.55 MPa. Okay, start to run. Then you can turn off the switch when the meter points at the pressure you want it cut in. I turned it off at about 0.6 MPa. Then I turned it on again. Now you can notice it doesn't run cause the pressure is now lower than the original cutting pressure setting. Then we can turn this tuner until it restarts to run. Okay, here is our new cutting pressure. Then have a check. Now I'm releasing the air, and yeah, at 0.6 MPa is a new cutting pressure. When you increase the cutting pressure, you increase the max pressure at the same time. I don't recommend you to increase the max pressure cause it's not safe and it's inefficient. So we still want the original rated pressure. For my pressure is 0.8 MPa. I start the meter when it touched 0.8 MPa. Then I turn the plastic tuner anti-clockwise very quickly until the compressor stops. Okay, here. Then I can call the adjustment is done. The next thing I want to talk about is how to test if your compressor can feed up your gun. And you can see it's the same gun using 29 psi. Then I put the trigger and wait the air compressor cuts in. Okay, it's cutscene here. You should keep putting the trigger and track the meter on your compressor. If you see the pressure stops dropping or increasing slowly, you can say the compressor airflow is quite enough for this gun. And here is an opposite example. I use a very high airflow blowgun here. And it will show you what will happen if the airflow of compressor is not enough. Now at 0.6 MPa, the compressor cuts in, but you can notice the pressure is still dropping. That means the airflow of your compressor is not enough for this. And remember our regulator setting? You can see when it's dropped down to 0.5 MPa, the inlet pressure of my gun starts dropping. And you can see the pressure has dropped about 0.02 MPa. If it's a spray gun, it has lost the proper automation. But actually, some smaller compressor can be barely enough for your work. As I mentioned in part 1, you don't use your spray gun all day long. So if your airflow is not enough, you can do a timing. Keep putting the trigger and see how long it can keep a consistent pressure. If you found you have about 2 minutes before the pressure drop, and actually from my experience, you are safe, but maybe you also need to do some tricks, like give a pause about 1 or 2 seconds after each pass. The next thing is to track the moisture. Before we spray, we must confirm there's no moisture in our airline. The method is pretty simple. You can just use a blowgun or your spray gun and take a paper towel. You can blow the air to paper towel for some time. Then you can track if it's dry or it becomes damp. If your paper towel is dry, then you can say your air is dry. That's what we want. Also by this method, you can track if there's contaminant in your air. If everything is okay, then you can enjoy spraying. And at last, I want to talk about some common mistakes that beginners can make. Yeah, I think I mentioned them in last part of video, but I want to make a conclusion. The first mistake is putting the filter directly on the outlet of compressor. The filter only works on liquid water instead of vapor. So if your air isn't cooled down, your filter will be useless. The second mistake is put the spray gun regulator behind the quick coupler. Actually, it's not a very common mistake, but I know a friend of mine did that before. He has 3 guns, but he didn't want to buy 3 regulators. So he put the regulator just behind quick coupler on hose. The problem of that is your quick coupler will ease the pressure. So you don't know the accurate pressure on the inlet of your spray gun. For example, if you use this setting, if your regulator says 29 psi, maybe the pressure on the inlet of your spray gun is just about 26 or 27 psi. And you don't know the accurate pressure loss, because it depends on the airflow of your spray gun. So I don't recommend you to do something like this. Just buy individual regulator for your spray guns, or change it when you're using different guns. And the last mistake is using too many quick couplers. Yes, I had mentioned it in last video. So this time I just show you the test. You can see in this setup, I use two quick couplers on my filters and regulators. And you can see I tested with this gun. The max pressure I can get is about 34 psi. Then you can see I change it to direct connecting. And here's the result. You can see same setting, but I have 2 or 3 more psi here. Okay guys, that's all in this video. If you think it's helpful, please give me a like. Any question? Feel free to comment. Here's Kale. See you in next video. Bye bye.